Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the October edition of Meaningful Conversations, where we have honest discussions on topics that are relevant to your health, wellness, personal development, and bringing more fun into life. Because what the heck is the point of doing all those other things if you're not having any fun, right? So this is a monthly forum sponsored by livinghealthylist.com, where I am the CEO curator. And of course, I am your host. So who the heck am I? I'm Denise E. Stegall. I am the healthy living liaison. That's how many of my clients know me. And my job really is to connect women with a healthy lifestyle that works for them without guilt, overwhelm, or skipping dessert. But today we are going to talk about something a little different. We're going to talk about healthy connections, how nurturing relationships can make you healthier, happier. And I truly do believe that the quality of our relationships has a profound impact on our overall well-being. Whether it's with family, friends, colleagues, your partner, nourishing these connections can truly be that cornerstone to a happier life. Healthier, yes, but also happier. So today we have two amazing speakers, and I'm really excited to have both Dr. Dorothy Martin Neville and Lynn Schuessler Williams, who are both in my circle of influence, and really, really excited to have a conversation with them. These are women who I look to, who I look up to because of their work in their respective fields. And what we're going to do basically is they're going to guide us through kind of that intricate tapestry of human connections. They'll give us insights and some strategy, certainly some wisdom. But what truly makes this unique, this conversation unique, is our audience. And we do encourage those of you who are here to actively participate, ask questions, raise your hand, and offer your own valuable suggestions and insights. So I'd like to, without further ado, I would like to have Dr. Dorothy, your name starts with D, so we're going to start with you.
Go ahead.
Have you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. Kind of a 2-minute intro. Then we'll go to Lynn, and then we will start the conversation.
You've got it. Dr. Dorothy Martin Neville. I am a business and life coach for leaders who are in transition and frequently in a place where they are so busy and push and getting to success, whatever on earth that means, that they are literally surviving the journey while they keep pushing that rock uphill. I get them to a place where they learn to recognize this is a spiritual journey. They have a life purpose, and it is meant to be connecting to our spiritual purpose, living that. And when you're doing that, you feel so much more passionate and you feel so much more powerful that you no longer have to push. You can just really have your vision and your passion carry you to where it is you're going. So you wake up literally filled with joy, which feeds your emotional health, your spiritual health, and your physical health. Because as a pioneer in integrative healthcare here in the United States, I've done numerous research. My doctoral dissertation was on the psychological and spiritual causes of physical disease and disorders. And so I taught at UConn Medical School for a bit. And I also was co-chair of the advisory board of a multi-million-dollar grant, overseeing energy medicine research across the country, looking at the impact of emotions and spiritual beliefs on our physical health. So I want to support all of my leaders being healthy, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And that comes from living your purpose. You're not in defense. You're not in fear. You're not in illusion. You're just living why you're here, and without any need for defending your purpose or defending you in the process.
Love that is so important. And I think as a business owner, it's something that I've had to really grow into and understand more and more as I really delve into what it is that, what my purpose is and what I love. And you're right, when you're living that healthy, happy, purposeful life, the things that it's not hard. It's fun and it's enjoyable and things just kind of happen.
Right.
So thank you.
Mhm.
So Lynn, please do the same. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure thing. So I loved hearing Dr. Dorothy's description of living that purpose, because that you could just feel the flow she was describing. It just felt so good. And I'm Lynn Schuessler Williams. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I am a certified Reset It teacher. We teach a process called Reset It that is based on neuroscience and quantum physics that allows our clients to reset their old programs and conditions that are leading to limiting beliefs, holding them back in just 2 sessions. It is just the most remarkable work I've ever done. Prior to that, I was a sales coach for coaches and consultants for a dozen years, and author of a book called 9 Little Words to Change Your Results. It's about releasing old patterns and moving forward with 3 short phrases. And so I love this conversation about connection and about how it serves us, and what happens to us in the challenging times of life are the things that we default to. And when we default to connection, we inherently have support, and we can just make it through so much. And I think the last few years have really been an object lesson in that for many of us. So it's a remarkable time to have this conversation. And I think, Denise, to your work, it's so important for us in our health and well-being to have those good connections and to feel that support. All the things that you teach us to do get easier when we feel like we have support and we're not struggling. So I'm super excited for today's talk.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to point out, so the 9 little words from Lynn's book, I have them. You can't see them so well. There we go. I have it right here, posted on a Post-it note on my computer, because these words, they're simple phrases, but they change everything. The way
Right.
you think, the way you feel. And really, that's where we're going. It changes the connection that you have with yourself, with others. So let's dive into to this conversation. So with what both of you do in your work, I'd like to talk a little bit about the science piece of connection. When it comes to the psychological and the oxytocins and all of those things that we don't think of when it comes to connection. We kind of think of connection. Oh, I'm getting to talk to this person, or we're meeting for coffee, which is important. But let's start with kind of the scientific piece. I'm calling it scientific, which I guess it is. So I'd like to start there and get both of your insights from that perspective. So I open
Dr.
it to either of
Dorothy,
you.
you want to jump into that?
Sure, I'm open either way. What I would say is that when you are not pushing and you are in joy, what ends up happening is that literally your biochemistry is impacted significantly. The energy pathways opened in your body, and we know about EKGs and EEGs, which measure energy in the brain and in the heart, but the reality is energy pathways are throughout your entire body. And so when you are more at peace, and vibrancy and passion is not without peace, they can be filled with peace, but the energy flows easily through your body. When that takes place, it balances out the biochemistry, it balances out organic and systemic function. And what ends up happening is that you literally walk taller, you walk fuller, and you walk with purpose. And because there's a peacefulness, your back isn't held back, because you're not bracing against anticipated assault. You're not bracing against whatever stresses you believe are coming your way, because metaphysics in all of this impacts our physiology. It impacts all of that. So being at peace and being in joy, and to me, that's meditation, that's prayer, whatever your faith system, it's meditation, it's prayer, it's a walk outside, it's sitting in quiet by a window in the sun, whatever it is that allows you to come into that place of surrender, where you give up the need to fight and to push, and you simply walk in purpose. That really changes everything about how you carry yourself. It ends up changing your belief systems. And spiritually, it ends up changing how you approach your life. So everything about you is at peace, and your health on every level is impacted enormously. But that's where we move into gratitude. That's where we move into the realization that life is unfolding. I don't have all the answers, and I never will, because I don't even know all the questions.
That is such a good point, because so often we are always trying to figure out what that next step is, and we push, one of you mentioned that earlier, we're always pushing. And when you're in peace and joy and purpose, there's no more pushing. But I know I've been guilty of this, like, I don't even know all the questions, but I need to know. And that can feel really heavy and uncomfortable, and stressful. And of course, stress then causes, a ripple effect when it comes to health, wellness, and again, and connecting to self, connecting to others. When you're in that kind of stress, or that kind of emotion, connection you're disconnected, or at least I know I feel disconnected. So Lynn, if you would.
Yeah, so I agree with that it's a biochemical response, right? We know we can measure the biochemical responses to stress. We can measure, I bet I've seen 10 articles in the last 2 months about how loneliness is the new smoking, right? Loneliness is so bad for us, and if the New York Times is publishing an article about loneliness is the new smoking, that there's something to this biochemical and physical and physiological responses to connection that serves us. Like, to me, that's just the bottom line. I'm no scientist, and I barely made it through chemistry in high school, right? But I'm so grateful that science seems to be, the neuroscientists especially seem to be catching up with the metaphysics of it all, right? They seem to be proving the metaphysics that we've been talking about for thousands of years. And so it's such a wonderful thing. But the real awareness, I think, about the science part for all of us is to just simply be aware. I deal with clients all the time who say, I'll ask them if a thought lands in their body and they can't answer it. They're so disconnected from their own bodies. And I really relate to that. I spent a lot of years truly making an art of ignoring my body. And, I just feel that's a bit of an epidemic in our society. And it's a disconnect with ourselves. And then we have this disconnect with each other that, a global pandemic had something to do with kind of ramping that up. And then, but it's also just our modern lifestyles. I thought when we first went into lockdown, I looked around my neighbors and thought, how many of them do I really know? Right? These people who I can walk outside and wave to from the porch, how many of them do I know very well? Right. And so this biological response to stress and to loneliness and to the antithesis of connection allows us to just see how powerful it is when we have connection. The healing power of that is just astounding, I think.
I would agree. So how do we, we've one of the themes that I'm hearing through our conversation is a bit of self-awareness, and understanding our own responses to stimuli, speaking scientifically. I'm not a scientist, but I do live with one. I really do. So knowing this, or with this self-awareness, how can we take that next step and try to make more authentic connection with others? And are we at a place where we really need to step back and say, okay, start from scratch, we need to connect with ourselves, and then we can make those connections? Or can we start from where we are today?
We have to stop where we are, but if there's going to be any quality into the relationship, it's going to be based on how present you are to yourself. If we live in a mask, what we're bringing to that relationship is the mask we live with, right? If we live in illusion, then I'm perfectly happy, just don't ask me any questions. And that's what we do our relationships. That's the depth of the connection we're going to have. So we need to be aware of what goes on in here, what goes on in our own lives, which the hard part I have seen is getting people to fall in love with themselves. That when you can fall in love with the man or woman you've become, when you can honestly, and the way I describe it quickly is that this embodied soul or this embodied essence, whatever your faith system is, sitting in this chair. And on the far side of the room are all the friends you've made, all the lovers you've had, all the jobs you've had, all the homes you've lived in, and all the parties or events you've had. All of that is the life you created. None of that has anything to do with this. I created that life. That life doesn't define me. I define that life. So I'm over here in this chair. And if I can begin to recognize that I created that life, I chose to live in this particular home. I chose to buy this particular furniture. I chose to be on this particular call. All of this is a result of the choices I made. And when I can own that and see that, boy, I did that. Now I don't get lost in the life I created. I'm a separate human being, have embodied soul essence over here. With that, then, I can either be truly proud of all the choices I've made, recognizing that some of them I wouldn't make today, but I made them from the place I was at back then when I made them. And I need to honor the woman I used to be, the life lesson I learned from making those particular choices, and then come forward and say, and who do I want to be in the future? And what do I want to look like? I mean, physically, but I mean, in my essence, what do I want to look like? Who do I want to be? And what do I want to do? And when I know that, I can get excited about, I've created all of this. What am I going to create going forward? Who am I going to bring into my world that allows me to create beyond what I can even fathom right now? Then I get to fall in love with the life I'm creating and fall in love with the woman who's creating it. Knowing I've never walked a moment on this journey alone, but knowing that I'm consenting to create this. And with that, then that's what I can bring into my relationships. Not Dr. Dorothy, not Amy and Mike's mom, not the woman here. I'm bringing me into those relationships, and not the genius or the guru or whatever the case may be, just me.
The person you are here.
Right. And that's it. When we bring that into a relationship, we have an opportunity to truly be present with somebody. And the more I can be present with them is the more I will honor all of the things I've done or haven't done. And I have nothing to hide. So I'm not going to dump my life story on you, but I'm also not going to hide in the intimacy desire, because I'm not in need to hide anything of my past or my present,
Yeah.
I think just that alone everyone can kind of have this sigh of relief, like, I can just be me.
Yeah.
It's so important. Lynn, before we go to you, I do want to ask Deborah if she has any thoughts, comments, because I know you had mentioned you may need to pop off early. So just wanted to bring you into the conversation and hear what you have to say.
Great conversation. I'm really enjoying it. I agree with everything that everybody's saying, and I do believe that we would have a whole different world if we were able to, encompass some of these, just very simple. Well, they're not. They're simple, but not easy. And so, I think that the more that we bring awareness to those things, the better world that we're going to have. And so I appreciate y'all having this conversation. And yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So Lynn, I will turn this over to you. Similar question, kind of going from where we were, not necessarily leading off from where starting where Dr. Dorothy left off, but your thoughts on this part of the conversation.
Well, I definitely want to start right where Dr. Dorothy left off. She said some of my favorite words. My favorite words, and we use these words all the time in the Reset It work. It's just me, right? Just me. Dorothy said, just me. It's just me. It's that authentic me that's free of not only our judgments about the past. Those are all programs and conditioned responses that, programs are just like programming a computer. We all receive programs from outside sources, whether it's parents or whoever raised us, whether it's teachers, friends, siblings, spouses, bosses, right? And then we spend our lives proving those programs to ourselves. Like the 5th grade teacher who said, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, you'll never be good at math." And then we spent our lives proving to ourselves we're never good at math, right? Those are programs. That was a program. We received it from an outside source, and then a conditioned response. We kept proving it to ourselves. And so those things live in our subconscious mind. And that's what I want to add to what Dr. Dorothy said, because I spent 40 plus years, as I know I don't look old enough for that to be true, but it is true. I spent 40 plus years as a personal development, spiritual development junkie. And there were thoughts and patterns and programs active in my life that just continued to hold me back no matter what. And until I unearthed those, it wasn't just me. It was me and all my programs and conditions. So that's the power of really unearthing those, getting them out of our way so we don't see the world through this veil of our programs and conditions that we may or may not even be aware of, right? And so when we get that freedom, that's when that flow and that purpose becomes super clear. And we may find our purpose and our joy and all of those things come from the same places. And now we're free to choose them from the space that's just me, of us being present to ourselves, to our essential beings. And so, that's just the most profound experience I've had of this. And it allows us, going back to connection, it allows us to then connect to other people from this authentic space of just us. It allows us to show up to the other people far more available from that space of our authentic selves. And that's the power. And the other thing I wanted to say about connection is, there are so many ways that we connect to people in our lives. There's so many types of relationships we have, obviously romantic relationships, parent-child relationships, work relationships, spouse relationships, all the things, right? And one of the relationships, because of my background as a sales coach, is, this idea of networking and making connections for business and that sort of thing. And there are so many things like that. That's just an example of one type that kind of gets a bad name, right? Nobody wants to go be sold to. People want to connect. And so that's a thing in my life. I've quit calling it networking. I call it now connections. So if I'm going to go make connections, that means to me that I'm not going to sell, I'm going to build relationships and to bring my authentic self to meet other people and hear what they have to say and learn from them and all of that. So I think there's a quality to our connections that our societal programming about connections and networking is just one example of that, has led us down a path that's not very useful sometimes.
Yeah.
I would agree. And when you look at, Facebook and Instagram, how many connections we have,
Right.
how many friends we have. I was just recently looking on my sister's Facebook page. I'm probably telling she's going to be like, why is she doing that? But she had something like 685 connections, and she and I had maybe 12 that were similar. And these were people that we knew. And I thought about it. So she's friends, because this was Facebook, with 685 people. And I thought, does she know them? Does she know their kids' names? Amy and Mike, Dr. Dorothy?
Anything, I was just thinking that we've got between LinkedIn, between Facebook, between all of the TikTok, between all of these different things, 5,000 people, 4,000 people. I've probably met 70 of those people. And I would probably consider 15 friends and maybe 3 close friends. And yet I'm so popular with people who don't know me. Where's the intimacy in that? You're talking and my mind was just going like, wow, yeah. Who do they know? What are they projecting onto me that has nothing to do with me? So that they can be mad at me or they can adore me. But neither way.
Based on what you put on LinkedIn that day.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I may have said something that offended them. I said, you've never walked a day alone. That may have offended them, because who do I think I am? I'm some loony bin who's this far right, born again, something or other, God bless us. And, and like, maybe not, or I'm this radical leftist because I posted, and I never post political things. I never post any of those things. That's insanity, but you can just say something and they hear it through their filter.
Sure.
And then they respond to you according to what their filter heard. And you're a good guy or a bad guy. And theoretically, these are our relationships.
Theoretically.
So what do I think of as relationship? Is that feeding my ego because so many thousands of people like me? Or is that got really nothing to do with my real world?
Yeah.
So how do we bring in 2 words that both of you have said at some point during our conversation: authenticity and vulnerability? How do we bring that? Because that's who we are at our core. How do we bring that into networking / connection so we can make those connections when we're in a room with someone, whether it's a Zoom room or face to face with someone, to make that something that is a real connection, like with feeling and with care, as opposed to like we said, the 5,000 people who like us because they like the way you wear your hair.
Right.
Right.
Well, can I just jump in on this one, because I've done a lot of thinking about this one. And the easy answer to me is intention. So what intention do you show up to networking with? Do you show up with an intention to meet as many people as possible that you might be able to sell something to? Or do you show up with the intention to find out, to meet people, get to know them, and find out how you can serve them. Right. That I used to teach that the foundational principle of good networking was generosity. Just like show up and figure out how you can help.
Yeah.
Right. I love that TV show, New Amsterdam, and the hospital director walks around saying, "How can I help? How can I help? How can I help?" I'm like, I love that guy. So, that's the answer to not being salesy when you network, is just showing up with a clear, authentic intention to serve and to be generous in building relationships with the people you meet. That's the simple answer, I think.
Yeah. And I think when you do that, if who you are, if we're living our purpose, if we're really living what feeds our soul, and we show up from that place, we're because I think we're naturally good and holy souls. We're going to, unless we're living in defense, and then the whole world is the product of whatever our filter is. Okay. But if we're not living in defense, we're living in our truth. I think we're all really holy souls, good beings who all have our own fears. We have our own wounds. We have all our own stuff, but we show up. And as Lynn said, you walk in the door and whoever's there greets you, or you greet them, and you instinctively know where they are. They're feeling wounded, they're feeling excited, they're feeling stressed, and instinctively, how can I help them relax? How can I be here to show them I see them? And not that I'm here to fix them, but just see them, and then where can we go with that? What can we do with that? And I'm here, yes, as a business life coach, but I'm here as me. And so depending on the conversation, my passion is going to show up for what I do at work, who I am at work, and how I want to support their company or support them becoming the person who can lead that vision that they have for their company, or they may be just telling me about their kids. And I can just be there and thoroughly enjoy their children. So that authentically, by being me, I will meet them where they are. Yes. And not come in with an agenda that every conversation is going to turn around to what I do for a living.
Yes.
All right. Because they may have just had a child a month before, or a granddaughter yesterday. They really don't want to know what I do. And if I'm really present, I'm going to be looking at those pictures. I'm going to be talking about them and show them out to somebody else. Say, guess who just had a baby, or who had a grandchild, and then let them be special, because I don't need to be special. Let them be special today, because this is their celebrating. That's really connecting. And yeah, at some point in all of these networking things, who are you and what do you do? They're going to know what I do. They're going to know who I am. But they will have experienced me more than learned about me. They will have experienced me.
Yeah.
Which is more important.
What you just said completely resonated with me, Dr. Dorothy, because when I'm out and about, now not necessarily networking, because often we talk about who we are, what we do, like you said, what I do comes out eventually. But what I find so often when I'm at social events, now most of them have to do with, my husband, his work, if I bump into somebody at the supermarket, nobody asks me about me. And for a while, I was feeling bad about that. Like, why aren't they interested in me, or what I'm doing, or what I'm about? And what I realized by what you just said a minute ago, Dorothy, was it's not about me. It's about what they may be going through and what they need. And that's what I am. That's why I'm supposed to be having this connection, this face-to-face with that person, is to support them, because in doing that, they will support me down the road too. It's not necessarily a give and take right away. And because like I said, I was feeling badly about that. Like, why isn't anybody interested in what I do or who I am? And starting today, I really see much clearer that it isn't about me. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really
Yes.
isn't. And putting you out there, when people say, what are you up to? The truth, oh, I'm just shopping. No, what am I up to? I may be just shopping. You know that I'm in the store. What am I up to? I'm starting this new 10-month program for women in transition, and I am so excited about it. I am so excited. If you know anybody who's the nutrition wants to take their company to the next level, please let them know, because I am so excited. I don't see that as, boy, I'm selling everywhere. I'm seeing that as, what am I up to? I'm sharing with you my excitement.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a big difference there of, ooh, some poor dumb soul that said hello. I can jump on them and let them know what they should buy my thing, you know. It's more of, what are you up to? I'm up to this, and I am so excited. I finally finished everything. It's ready to go. And they can tell the difference where they just met me where I am versus, oh my gosh, she's going to sell me something. No, she's not. I can assure you she's not going to be selling you anything. That then you're putting yourself out there. Then they are getting to know you. But I think oftentimes, especially as women, we're conditioned when people say, how are you? Fine, thank you. And how are you? And then we pull out of them what's going on. It's like we also cause ourselves to disappear. You know, I've written 8 books. My last one is Real Women Change the World, Letting the Good Girl Die so the Real Woman Can Live. And I wrote that because we have learned to be good girls and to disappear. So we do need to put ourselves out there. But in doing that, that doesn't mean I don't see you and where you are. And I can say, what's going on? You know?
Beautiful.
I think when people say, and I've had this conversation several times in the past few months, when people, you know, how are you? How are things? Oh, I'm fine. I'm content with the way I feel. I'm content with the way I look. I'm content. And I want to kind of dive into that more. And I wonder if, you know, I wonder if that's an invitation to a further conversation down the road. Because I think when we say that, and like you said, as women, we're kind of, everything's good, everything's fine. But are we? And I think to go back to the connection with ourselves, only when we're connected to ourselves can we really be true and authentic and really be generous when we're in these situations. And so I see how, I really do see how it all ties together, but it all starts right here.
Right.
And so for those of us, those who are listening to recordings, I'd love for both of you to kind of give us a tip, that something we haven't discussed, that someone who's listening going, I need some help with this. This is a conversation I needed to hear. What is one thing that we haven't said that you would like for our audience to hear?
Lynn?
Gosh, I think that talking about how we are programmed and conditioned in our lives, and talking about, you both just mentioned women particularly, society, we have so many social programs, and where I grew up, and in the time I grew up, women truly had a distinct set of social programs that were what we were supposed to grow up and expect to do, and what we were supposed to grow up and be. And I hear women all the time say that they have programs and conditions running that are a result of the thought, I am not enough, or I am not worthy, or I am not good enough, or fill in the blank, smart enough, skinny enough, like whatever the adjectives are of the enough, right? And so there is no one who is more capable of being enough than any of us, right? There is no one more enough. There is no one more worthy. There is no one. We're all worthy of being our authentic selves. And so I just think it's a wonderful thing for women to gather in community that supports this idea that, one of my hobbies is a community of women that's all free. There's no charge to it. There's no monetization of it at all. And it gathers women in this supportive community with a mission to create the opportunity and the environment for us to build our self-belief and our confidence to step into our greatness and power, to create choices and live a purposeful life. And when you think of those words and what happens to women when they have the environment that is not filled with the social programs that say you're not, that teach that you're not enough, and then it is just this beautiful thing. So one of my favorite words is gather. Like, gather. Where are you gathering in community with the people who will see you and know you and appreciate you and give you space to do the things that allow you to see and feel yourself, your authentic self? So yeah, that's my thing that we haven't said yet.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dorothy?
I think for me that the fear of intimacy in relationship is that if you know me, you won't like me. Or if you know me, you will judge me. And then it comes down to intimacy, sadly, still means sexuality or finances. Right? And two subjects people don't want to discuss. And then I know that's a generalization, but generally two subjects people don't want to discuss. What if intimacy is just a willingness to be absolutely present with you? So at the moment, I'm feeling off the wall anxiety because of something tomorrow, or I'm feeling depressed because of an argument I just had with somebody I love deeply, or I am so excited because something I just did was a great success, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. I don't want to, and yet I'm coming out of my skin with excitement. Why can't we just be there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why can't we brag for 5 minutes and just give us the joy and the excitement about what you did and what was a great success? Let me be in that joy with you. What if you did have an argument with somebody you love deeply, and you don't have to give me all the details, but what if you shared a touch with me and I could be empathic with you? I could share with you and let you know you're not the only one that's ever had that experience. What if you were just present? That's intimacy. It isn't the topic. It isn't the extent of detail you give me. It's allowing me to experience your experience with you. Then I've experienced you. Because by next week, I may forget exactly what you said to this person and they said to you. But what I'm going to remember is that you were hurt. And that hopefully I helped ease the hurt. I'm not here to collect gossip or information. I'm here to be present with you. And when we risk that that's what intimacy is, and it's not a desire to expose, and so you walk home and say, why did I say that? Why did I say that? I shared too much. Don't. Share you, but don't share the facts if that's too uncomfortable and you're going to regret it. That intimacy truly is just being present with somebody, and whatever that looks like. Because to me, experiencing somebody is something we don't do frequently, because my head talks to your head, or my head talks to your heart, but we don't just sit and be with somebody.
So true.
Beautifully said.
Something just popped into my head, and I'd like for you both, if to give me an answer here, to clarify. Intimacy, vulnerability. For many, many years, people would say to me, Denise, you need to be more vulnerable. And I never really understood what that meant. And then more recently, the conversation turned more to the word intimacy. And so if you could clarify that, and maybe in some ways they mean something similar. I don't know.
I want to say that I can see the connection in most normal everyday understandings of the word, right? I also think that we've heard a lot about vulnerability thanks to Brene Brown and her work. And where I think what Dr. Dorothy was just describing as intimacy, as this bringing your authentic self to the conversation, mattering not what the conversation is about, right? It doesn't need to be a sexual conversation. It can be a business conversation. But when you show up as yourself, that is an expression of intimacy. I think the same is true about vulnerability, no matter what type of relationship or situation we're in. But vulnerability has this, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, kind of a judgment about it, that to be vulnerable is to open yourself to a risk, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas intimacy does not have that same feeling to it. And I mean, it might to some people, depending on their programs and conditions, but the definition of the word, the way Dr. Dorothy just talked about it, it is not that there's this inherent risk to it, the way vulnerability is talked about with this, you're opening yourself to risk if you're vulnerable. What are you vulnerable to, right? There's got to be something you're vulnerable to. So, I think people latch on to words in conversations, through books we read and all those sorts of things. And someone saying to you that you need to be more vulnerable might be them passing on their programs and conditions to you, and it may have nothing to do with your authentic self. So, you trust your knowing and your self-awareness about whether that's a message you need to embrace or, just, I think the more we're all aware, and Dorothy said it earlier too, the more we're all self-aware about the things that matter in our experience and how we're bringing ourselves to conversations, the more we're able to judge whether what someone's piece of advice is, whether it's really for us or not.
That makes sense. Even the words themselves, the way they sound, when you say them out loud, intimacy, that's a very positive, a very uplifting word. Vulnerability is a heavy word. And so thank you both for that. That was really helpful, the intimacy piece. And then Lynn, understanding a little bit more, talking a little bit more about the vulnerability piece and where that can come in. Let me see. We are at a place where we can do one more tip, or we can start to wrap up. Is there anything else that needs to be said in this conversation that people need to hear?
I would say conversation is so necessary. I was talking to somebody yesterday. We were talking about our kids, that our kids and our grandkids, they want to text. They don't want to talk. Because mom, why do I have to talk? It's going to take 20 minutes. I can text it in 2. You can. So are we sharing messages or are we sharing conversation?
I love that.
All right.
I think
so. If we're sharing conversation, we're showing up. If we're sharing a text, the facts are showing up.
I love that.
what's more important to us. And I truly believe, and I'm not getting into anything of significance here, but the massive divide in the United States. If we really talk to each other, would there be as much divisiveness as there is? Right? That conversation can be an immense healer if we are willing to step out of being right and we simply are together. A conversation could heal so many divisive situations. And it's the lack of conversation, the lack of willingness to be present with. That when I need to be right and you need to be wrong, I'm not willing to hear. If I'm willing to see you, we can both truly be there and both of us be right with very different opinions.
Definitely.
I think on that note, ladies, I think we shall wrap up. I would like for both of you just to tell us how we can, our listeners can find you so they can connect with you, not just online, but hopefully to take that next step and actually have a conversation. And then, of course, I'll make sure that that information is in the show notes, both with the podcast and on YouTube.
Okay, I would say that you can, my email address is dorothy@askdrdorothy.com. My website is askdrdorothy.com. And also, if they go to my website, right on the landing page, there is a line where they can receive a self-assessment leadership tool I've created, and they'll automatically be put into my newsletter. I have one newsletter goes out on Sunday evenings. That's it. You do not get 5 emails a week because you signed up for my newsletter, which I think, from my opinion, is rather excessive. You will get one on Sunday evenings, and that's it. So if they choose to stay in touch, the newsletter is one way to do it, or certainly reach out. I'd love to speak to anybody who wants to continue this conversation further or work with me. Thank you.
I love it. Thanks, Dorothy. Miss Lynn.
Yeah, so people can find all my things at meetlynhere.com. And that's just a simple page that has links to everything. It has a little video at the top, so you'll know it's me. And the other link I'd love to share and is a story. It's a 5-minute video that's a story, and it's a story of a thought that held me captive for 54 years. And so I would love to share that. It's just simply 54, the numbers, 54yearthought.com. So those are, but you'll find more of me at the other one in terms of like how to find me. All the links are there. My email's there, all of it. So
all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. And for those of you who are watching our replay or listening on a podcast, make sure you check out the show notes for the links that Lynn and Dorothy just shared. Also included in that, I have a link to the first 3 chapters of my international best-selling book. I'm very excited about that. Healthy Living, Happy Life, a practical path to finding a healthy lifestyle that works for you. And truly, connection is such a big part of that book and our lives. So I'd really love for you to take a gander at that. And that is one of those things, again, it's a PDF of those first 3 chapters. And then if you like the book, there's a way to download it. You can buy it obviously on Amazon, or you can download the full book on PDF, and all of that information will be on my website, livinghealthylist.com. So again, Lynn, Dr. Dorothy, thank you for this amazing conversation. I hope it's the first of many for the 3 of us and for those of our listeners to connect with you as well. Have a great week, everyone. A wonderful day. And our next meaningful conversation is on Tuesday, November 14th. at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And check out the event on LinkedIn and on livinghealthylist.com. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.